Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've ever felt totally lost in a sea of economic jargon or, felt like the talking heads on the news are literally speaking a different language, you are in the exact right place. We're going to strip all that noise away, no fancy tack, no hoodwinking. We're getting right back to basics. The sheer, undeniable common sense of scarcity and incentives.
So, let's dive into a really fundamental question. How does a dollar actually move? The author points out that most folks go through their whole lives getting fooled, simply because they don't understand how a dollar moves from their pocket to someone else's. I mean, it's easy to do, right? We get so distracted by the surface-level noise, the politics, the flashy headlines, the emotions, that we totally miss the invisible gears turning beneath every single transaction we make.
To fix that, the source material lays out 5 simple rules. Rewards over intentions, the cost of choices, prices are messages, profits, losses, and value, and finally, trade is not war. Let's get right into it. All right, rule number 1, rewards over intentions. This is the crucial idea that people respond to what they are actually rewarded for doing, not to noble political intentions. To really illustrate this disconnect, the text points to a past policy in Maryland. The big stated intention, help the poor by taxing the wealthy. Sounds completely straightforward, right? You tax the folks with the most money to fund programs for those with the least. But, well, the author notes the real-world result was quite a bit different. See, the wealthy millionaires didn't just sit there and accept a smaller paycheck. Nope, they called up their accountants, packed their bags, and literally moved their businesses and homes to other states. When the dust finally settled, Maryland actually ended up with less tax revenue than it started with. The big takeaway from the source here is that you absolutely cannot just wish for people to act against their own interests. You gotta look closely at what behavior you're actually rewarding. Moving right along, that brings us to rule number 2, the cost of choices. Because as it turns out, every single decision you make carries a hidden cost. Think about it. Economics isn't just about counting what you have in your wallet right now. It's about the silent trade-offs you make every single hour of the day. If you choose to spend $10 on a burger, well, the opportunity to buy a movie ticket with that same $10 is gone for good. You simply can't have both. Every time you say yes to one thing, you're simultaneously and quietly saying no to something else. Now, $250,000, that is a massive number. The author calls this the ghost of $250,000. What does that actually mean? Well, picture somebody buying a shiny new $50,000 BMW. They want to feel like a high flyer. They love that new car smell, the roar of the engine. But what they don't see sitting in the passenger seat is the ghost of that $250,000. According to the author, that is the staggering amount that initial $50,000 could have become if they had just put it into a sensible investment for 30 years instead. The real cost of the car isn't just the sticker price on the lot. It's the huge amount of future wealth they traded away for a few years of luxury. Okay, let's hit rule 3. Prices are messages. The source argues we need to completely change how we look at everyday price tags. We usually look at prices at the grocery store or the gas pump and just get annoyed, right? Like, why does this cost so much? But the author makes a fantastic point here. Prices are actually a highly sophisticated communication system. Think about it. There is no minister of sandwiches in London sitting in some gray office carefully orchestrating the supply chain to make sure every single citizen gets their lunch. It'd be totally impossible for one person to calculate how much flour, yeast, and turkey a city of millions needs every single day. Yet, somehow the bread arrives on time, perfectly. Why? Because prices act as messages. If there's a shortage of flour, the price goes up. That signals bakers to conserve and farmers to grow more. Prices seamlessly coordinate the whole world just by signaling exactly what is needed and where it's needed most. But when a government steps in and tries to artificially set a fair price, the author argues they usually break this intricate communication system. The source gives us 2 pretty stark examples. First up, rent control. If a government forces rent prices artificially low, the hidden message to builders is stop building, and the message to landlords is stop maintaining. The result? Rotting buildings and empty apartments. On the flip side, if a government sets the price of wheat artificially high to try and protect farmers, the outcome is mountains of rotting wheat sitting uselessly in silos, while folks elsewhere go hungry because they just can't afford it. The author stresses that these controls, no matter how good the intentions are, basically scramble those vital messages, which sadly ends up hitting the poorest individuals the absolute hardest. All right, rule 4, profits, losses, and value. The text suggests we stop seeing profits and losses as emotional victories or defeats and just start looking at them as directions on a map. The author puts it perfectly. A profit is basically the world enthusiastically saying yes. It means people want you to keep bringing them those fruit snacks. A loss, on the other hand, is a firm no. It's the market's polite, or sometimes really harsh, way of telling you to stop wasting resources trying to sell raisins to folks who absolutely won't touch them. I mean, nobody wants raisins in their trick-or-treat bag, right? A loss is just clear, actionable feedback. Which brings us to a somewhat controversial concept, bailouts. According to the text, when governments use taxpayer money to keep too-big-to-fail companies afloat, they are willfully ignoring that firm's vital no from the market. They are artificially keeping that raisin kid in business. They're basically forcing the rest of the world to keep dealing with a failing enterprise long after it should have naturally closed its doors, liquidated its assets, and made room for something better and way more efficient. And, this same logic applies directly to wages. The source emphasizes that a person isn't paid for how much they sweat or how many grueling hours they stand in the hot sun. They're paid for the actual measurable value they create. It can be a tough pill to swallow, but the author points out that if a rule forces a boss to pay $15 for what is fundamentally only $10 worth of work, well, that boss won't be a boss for very long. To survive, they'll either be forced to close their doors entirely or find ways to replace those jobs by hiring machines instead. The harsh but simple reality presented here is that the absolute best way to earn more is to find a way to become more useful and create more value. Which brings us to our fifth and final rule: trade is not war. This section completely dismantles the popular idea that every single trade has to have a distinct winner and a clear loser. The source material argues that trade, at its very core, is actually about mutual benefit. Think about a simple lunch swap. If you trade half your sandwich for half of your friend's pizza, nobody loses. You get variety, your friend gets variety, and you're both happier and better fed. It is a total win-win. Now take that exact same logic and apply it to a high-priced lawyer. Even if that lawyer is exceptionally great at cleaning, like maybe they're the best cleaner in the entire city, they are still vastly better off paying a professional cleaner to clean their office. Why? So they can focus their highly valuable time on actually practicing law. The cleaner gets a job, the lawyer maximizes their income. In both scenarios, from the schoolyard to the corporate office, trade means both parties walk away better off than they started. So, to wrap up this explainer, these are the core common sense principles you need to understand so you can stop getting fooled and start doubling down on what actually works. You have to understand how money truly moves. You need to look at actual rewards over stated intentions. You absolutely must acknowledge your daily trade-offs. Read prices as vital messages, treat profits and losses as map directions, and recognize that trade is always a mutual benefit. I'll leave you with this final thought to ponder today. Look really closely at your own daily choices. Ask yourself, what trade-offs in your life are leaving you empty-handed? Are you out there chasing shiny BMWs while completely ignoring the silent, heavy ghost of that $250,000? Or are you respecting the simple, incredibly powerful common-sense machinery of your own economy? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope it helps you view the world just a little bit more clearly.